All right, everyone, welcome to the Wikid Creator Interviews. This is our second one. We've got Chuck Bonetti and Eric Berry from Sporkman, the creators of the Sporkman conventions and Sporkman Goes to Japan. Oh, and I'm Michael Watson. I'm at Nub Guy and joined by Matt here. We are the
Hey, how's it
Wikid
going, people?
co-founders.
I'm Matt, or actually, I'll wait
Do
till the
you
end.
know who you are?
Apparently, I think he's having
I've
an
never had
amnesia thing.
anyone have so much trouble.
My name is. Oh my God, who am
Well,
I?
my name is Matt Bryant, of course, like Michael said, but right now I just can't remember my Twitter
It's
handle.
Matt B. Sulos. Even I know that. Come on, man.
I don't know.
Hey, we all
I've been
have
busy
dates.
all day, so
But thank you guys for joining us in the chat and welcome guys to with us here in the digital studio, so to speak. And we want to just to sit down with you and dive into everything Sporkman. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting us. I know we've talked about getting something going here for a while, and I
Nice.
appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, it's great to have you guys. How you guys been doing since we last talked?
I've been doing pretty good. Health-wise, I know we were talking about the health stuff. I'm free and clear there, so I'm back to doing the stuff for the Sporkman, getting to work on preparing for our Indiegogo here at the end of the month. We actually did have to push it back. We were planning on releasing it on the 1st. Of course, with Wanpool coming out and a couple, and a few others that were coming out here. And Eric has some things going on in his life. We kind of felt it was better just kind of push things back a little bit. And then with the health scare, it's just kind of worked out pretty good. I always say things work out for a reason. So
That's true. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it seems like now's a good time. I mean, I think March is a good month for it, and there's not a lot going on right now, and there's a lot finishing up, and who knows? We'll see where it goes, but
right. I think we're already starting to see a really good start. I was really surprised that during a couple titles didn't make it during the year, but I was glad to see we had Slick Jimmy get his with a little girl Lethal get funded, and then
right,
of course,
yeah,
and then Wanpool hitting right out the gate starting March 1st.
What a blast that was,
Yeah, they hit funding first day within 23 hours, and now they're up to $5,200.
Yeah,
and I even told them, I said, dude, you guys minimum 5K.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible what they've managed to do there, and it's cool to see him teaming up with the Science Wizard Comics guys, and
yep,
I'm excited to see what they do next with that new company.
Yeah, so. And then the Ferryman's coming out, and then hopefully we can
part
carry.
2.
Yep, part 2. So I'm hoping we can carry that torch, and then I know we got right after that we got the Mythoverse coming out.
Oh yeah, so, it's kind of a nice little spot there for you.
Yeah, and then of course I guess Decimators. That next volume came out, so we
actually have that ship. We'll be shipping those out come Tuesday.
Yeah, so we got a good thing here. I know
Go ahead. I was going to ask you, and you go ahead and fill us in on what you were going to say there as well. But I just wanted to let for those who aren't potentially aren't familiar with Sporkman, what can you tell us what is he all about?
Eric, you want to take that question?
Yeah, well, Sporkman, a lot of the stuff that makes it unusual is the story behind how it came to be a thing. There was actually a costume that I did of Sporkman before the comic came out, and it was just kind of a joke thing. And I went to a convention dressed in the costume, and people just really loved the concept of the character and how funny it was. And people kept joking with me. They're like, "Oh, when's the comic coming out?" And so I talked to Chuck and our other partner Chris, and I said, people really, really like this character, and they're talking about a comic, so maybe we should do that. And Chuck, Chris, and I were all very much into various artistic endeavors, very much into movies and film. That's originally where the three of us kind of had our background. Was we wanted to do more with film, but all three of us were also comic fans, and I used to make up my own comics and stuff when I was little.
Nice.
And So it was just one of those things that was kind of adjacent to the stuff that we enjoyed anyway. And so the first issue we did, which we at the time we just thought it was going to be a one shot. It was just going to kind of be a novelty thing. So we were thinking, well, what do we tell just for one story with Sporkman? And we knew we didn't really care about doing an origin thing because we didn't feel that was all that interesting, really. You know, part of what makes Sporkman interesting is the humor, and we're like, well, we don't want to bog it down with anything super serious, or do something really ridiculous for the origin, and we have to just, if we want to tell a story, let's forget about doing an origin because that would take up a whole issue, or sometimes, depending how in depth it is, you know, an origin story could take up multiple issues. So we said, well, why don't we just have Sporkman and he's at a sci-fi convention? So it was kind of meta in that way that we wrote a story that wasn't necessarily based in fact, but the situation of Sporkman being at a sci-fi convention was, you know, something that really happened, and we said, okay, well, let's do that for.
Yeah, no, I always thought that was so fun. You know, that idea of him going to a convention with other superheroes it's so fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in it that really played to a very specific audience, but it's not something where someone who wasn't there, you know, won't get it. It's not like there's any inside jokes, you know, that people wouldn't get. But we do have some stuff in there where, like, some of the characters, you know, like, for example, there's a superhero in the beginning that when I was there at that convention for the costume contest, there was another guy who created his own superhero character for the costume contest, and it was hilarious too. It was another very funny superhero. And when we were working on the comic, I asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if I put your character in the comic? And he's like, oh yeah, that would be really cool. So, you know, we have that in there, that people that were at that convention and went to it on a regular basis, like, they know who Sporkman is. And they would have recognized this other character, but it's not such an inside joke that people reading it would be like, oh, I don't understand this. I don't get this. It's just little Easter eggs for people that were actually, you know, saw some of that stuff in real life, so to speak.
Kind of like taking your inspiration from the, like you said, it was based on this real thing, so you wanted to take some inspiration for that.
Yeah.
And we actually did that throughout the comic. There's actually a situation, like, there's places like Eric's in there, I'm in there, and a character, and two of our characters. We did it with Chris. So we actually put, like, you know, little Easter eggs in there for people who knew us, but it wasn't important for the rest of the meta story.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. So is that meta story something you guys plan to carry on for beyond conventions?
Not really. Not so much as a thematical thing where, you know, we'll kind of do that, you know, in other issues and stuff. Like I said, it really was just because we were, you know, they were saying art imitates life, and so it was kind of one of those things where we just said, okay, we're going to have them at a convention. Well, what kind of things are done at conventions? Well, you have panels, you have costume contests, you have guests, you have people in costume. So it was like we just had those elements within it that really anyone who is familiar with conventions, probably even if they've never been to a convention, they get that all that kind of stuff is there, that it's that kind of, you know, little world. And so we just said, okay, well, how can we make that kind of situation interesting for Sporkman? Like, who would the villain be? What would the motivation of the villain be? And just throw in some little things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's fun because I like how as a comic fan, you know, of course we go to conventions, and now to read, you know, we read the comic and you're at the convention in the comic. It just, like you said, is that kind of really fun humor with that, you know.
Yeah, and some people I know, they would read it and they would be like, okay, I'm not quite sure, what you're trying to do with the character and stuff like that in that situation, because a lot of people are used to, very limited, very linear storytelling. You start off with an origin, or you have an origin in a flashback or something, but with Sporkman conventions, you were just kind of jumping right in, and you're saying, what, origin doesn't matter. You don't have to know who Sporkman is in real life. He's Sporkman. He's if he could be Sporkman 100% of the time, he would be Sporkman 100% of the time. Like, I could totally see him at home chilling on the couch, and he's in costume. Like I that's the kind of character he is. He loves being who he is. He loves being Sporkman. Why does he really care about too much else besides that? So moving forward, it was, when we decided, okay, we're going to do more issues, we said, are we going to go back and tell an origin? Or are we going to do something that takes place right after conventions? And we said, well, let's not worry about that. We're going to tell the stories that we think are interesting, that we think could be funny, and we'll worry about chronology later. It is there. There is definitely, one issue will take place sometimes before one, sometimes after one. But we're not tied to a numbering system of any point. So one thing we always wanted to be able to do is you can pick up any issue of Sporkman, unless it's like a multiple part. Like Sporkman Goes to Japan is 3 parts. You can't pick up part 2 or 3 and have it make any sense. You really need all 3 parts. But they can pick up Sporkman Goes to Japan. They can pick up conventions. They can read either one of those, and they're not going to be lost. There's not going to be so much weight to a backstory and to a chronology that you can't just read it and enjoy it, which is one thing that's actually kept me away from a lot of mainstream comics. Was I couldn't just pick up an issue of Spider-Man and know what's going on, because they would be referring to something that happened 50 issues ago, and oh, it's part of a story where you also had to read a certain issue of Thor or something like that. And that really kept me away from a lot of comics. And when I started reading comics, a lot of what got me into it was Dark Horse, because you could say, hey, I like the Predator, and there's this Predator storyline. It's 4 issues. That's the whole storyline. I don't have to have read all the other Predator comics they made. You can just jump right in on that story. So that's kind of how we're handling a lot of it. And I think the first couple stories might jump around a bit, and then we are going to settle into more of a chronological thing. But it's never going to be. There's 1 or 2 stories we may tell that it's important that it connects to another thing we did. But for the most part, you can pick up a story for Sporkman, read it, you're going to get the story. You're not going to be lost.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's kind of nice. It gives you that that ability to be able to just read in the way you want to read them, and how you want to. In
so
order.
You could essentially read, something that takes place, later on, and then read something that takes place earlier. And there might be a few references where you're like, oh, okay, well, that references an issue I didn't read yet. But it's never going to be so weighty that you're lost. And that's the important thing. It's great if you get a tidbit of something and you say, okay, now I'm interested in this other story that maybe I wasn't before, because something's being referred to that took place back then. But you're never going to read it and be like, okay, I don't get it, because I didn't read this previous issue.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Let's see. So I was wanting to ask you another question. So Sporkman is for all intents and purposes a manga. I think we can say. Are you both fans of manga and anime? And if so, how does that influence your work?
Well, I wouldn't say Sporkman really himself is. He has some homage, and I'll explain why. Really, how Sporkman came to be was he was actually it wasn't happenstance. Eric actually created the figure using a red Power Ranger. So that's how we kind of got the look of him looking like Sentai, the Sentai look, for manga. So really, he is a kind of like a East meets West superhero. He's really got the Western superhero, like this, like who he is, like how he is the persona and stuff like that. But yet he's got that that Eastern feel, with the over the top. You know what I mean? Because all their superheroes tend to be over the top and very fantastical superheroes. So it was happenstance that he ended up being like that because of how it was made. But in terms of answering your question, yeah, I am at least a huge fan, and I know Eric does like anime too. I am the bigger fan of anime and manga and stuff like that.
Yeah, with what Chuck said, if I can add to that, there's a lot of stuff with Sporkman that really was happy accidents. I always tell people, I'm like, where we are now, it was never intentional. It was never we sat down and said, you know what, we want to do some comics, we want to have a superhero, and we want to have it comedic. Like, we never planned that out. It was simply, oh, here's a concept for a funny superhero. Ha ha ha. And then I started getting into doing figure customization with action figures. And one of the first things I did was Sporkman, and that really, the figure I started with, a red Power Ranger figure, really influenced like a lot of the color, with the white and the red and the gold and black emblem. They're all a lot like the Power Rangers look, and like I said, it was a happy accident. So when we did Sporkman Goes to Japan, it was like we actually had a character that kind of fit within manga and anime, but it was never that we set out to make a character like that. It was a happy accident that, hey, you know what, we have a character that really can connect and transcend those two
elements,
two genres. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when we actually started creating the story, because how Sporkman Goes to Japan came into thing, because really started with I actually said to Eric, so wouldn't it be awesome if we saw Sporkman standing in front of like this giant mech? And Eric's like, well, what if the head looks like a spork? And so we're like, well, what if it did this, like that opening shot in Gundam Seed, where you see the Gundam Freedom? So that's really what's inspired the whole start with Japan. So it just grew from there, because we wanted to see Sporkman in these certain things. So like he said, it was that transitional element. With Sporkman. So he, that's why I think he's a really that East meets West character. He's got the heart of, I always call him, to me, this is how I view him, and I'm not sure if Eric agrees with me, but I always view him, he's got the heart of, he's like Superman. He's got the heart, he's got hope and love. He's underestimated all the time, but he always rises to the challenge. And he's like Superman, but without the powers. He's got, he is the heart of a hero, 100%. And that is who he is. What, like we said, if he could be on 24/7 as a hero, he'd do it. That's what really for me is who Sporkman is. He is the heart of a hero. He's everything that I want in a hero, that I love from superhero genre and stuff like that. And, it comes out, because Eric and we bounce the ideas off. And I think really this is what Eric also wants out of Sporkman as a hero too. Am I correct, Eric?
Yeah. And, Sporkman, a lot of it is, he has a lot of self-confidence, where even if other people are like, you got sporks on your hands and this big silly helmet, he never looks at himself as, like he doesn't get mopey about anything. There's no brooding going on with Sporkman.
He is all intents and purposes. He is that hero that I always say that people underestimate Sporkman because first glance what's the thing people looking at the Sporks. Oh man, that's over the top. That can't be a hero, and we're proving in Japan that he is a hero. Here really what a lot of people are really going to look forward to is Sporkman and really grows as a character in Japan because I always use the tagline, he wasn't the hero that Japan wanted, but he became the hero Japan needed.
That's perfect.
Yeah, because he basically was, for all intents and purposes, in their eyes, he was a D-lister hero. But, he was willing to, when push came to shove, he didn't give up. And he even willing to. There's this one scene where he gets the sword, and he doesn't want anything to do with the sword. He throws it back down, and he's actually given the sword because of him being willing to stand up for what was right. So it almost is that graduation. I view it as almost like a graduation present. Him getting the sword is almost like that great, yeah. I actually came up with this, and I don't know how much I shared with Eric. There's an idea. There's actually going to be 7 weapons in Japan that kind of. It is actually going to tie into the Natsumi story a little bit more. That people are going to get that actually kind of are weapons that kind of give them who they are. Kind of like Aroni Kenshin. How like the sword picks him, and Katana. How her from DC. How like the sword picks her. And stuff like that, kind of that element.
Okay,
or
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Definitely Bleach too. Okay, go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's another good concept for it. Bleach is another good one for it. But as far as like with concept and everything, how long did it take you guys to actually fully get conventions going? In a sense, from concept to done.
Well, if I can take that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Conventions was really an amazing experience doing that. It just everything worked so smoothly without a hitch on that it really spoiled us when we went and did Japan. I mean, to write it, I think I wrote it fairly fast.
I would say within a month. I think it was.
I think it might have even been less than that. With Chris and also Chuck contributing ideas and stuff like that. But man, I think it was only like a week or something like that. We just knocked it out. It was kind of just like the story just flowed naturally, and I think that's always a good sign when everything kind of just like writes itself. Again, we were dealing with a world that, I'm a avid convention goer, so some of those elements, just kind of came naturally because of that. But it wrote itself very easy, and our experience with our artist Gifney was amazing. We had found him, and you got to remember, this was back in like. What was this, Chuck?
2005.
Well, I think, yeah, 2005.
2005.
So, Facebook, I don't even think existed. Twitter didn't exist. It was MySpace. That was the main thing. But we actually found him on a board that was like a board for artists posting for jobs and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, and we threw it out there along with a lot of other people. There was very few artists looking for work. It was mainly writers looking for artists. And we were like, boy, we're not going to get anybody because, obviously, supply may not be able to meet demand. But he had messaged me and said, hey, I'm interested in this project. And we said, okay, well, here's a picture. I think I sent him a picture of the costume and maybe a picture of the action figure. And I said, this is kind of what we're going for. And he sends us back 3 entirely different looking versions of Sporkman. As far as like styles and body proportions and stuff like that. And it was like, wow, he's versatile. He could do, these different styles for the character, but the one was a little bit more realistic, which is what we were looking for. And I said, okay, I like this, but I'd like the eyes done more like this. And he comes back, fixes the eyes. And we're like, perfect. Yeah. That is like dead on kind of what we're looking for as far as the style goes. And so with some of the characters, like we said, okay, well, we want a character looks kind of like this. We want another character looks a little bit like this. He would send us stuff, and in most cases, it was like, make this little tweak here, we're good. And then when it came to doing the storyboards, I did a lot of the storyboards where I would have, a frame with a stick figure. Okay, it's a close-up on this character and, whatnot. And in some cases, he improved upon, what I did. And we just kind of went back and forth on page approvals and stuff like that. But it was a really, really smooth process. And like I said, that really spoiled us. Because then when we went and did Japan, we were dealing with, okay, well, now we're going to be expanding on the character. We're going to be expanding on the universe. We want to go bigger and more action stuff. And that really threw us off as far as page count goes, because we were going to do 2 issues of like average numbered pages. And so we started storyboarding this stuff out. And I'm like, man, by the time we get to issue 2, the end of issue 2, we're only like halfway through it. And so we had to do a lot of adjustments, and we had to negotiate a new contract to get the 3rd issue made. And, we ended up with 3 oversized issues instead of 2 normal sized issues. And that was one of those things where, when you're writing stuff, with screenplays, and, like I said, Chuck and Chris and I, we kind of have our background more in that. It's kind of a rule of thumb that every page of dialogue is like, a minute of screen time or whatever. But that rule gets thrown out the window when you're talking about page count. There's just a totally different artistry at play, because you could have a big splash page that has someone going, what? And then you could have another page that is severely dialogue heavy. So with Japan, I started backing off more and more from the storyboarding, and unless it was something like a splash page where we had something very, very specific in mind, I might kind of just let Giffney do his thing. He's the artist, so I'm like, look, we have so many pages to work with. Give us a storyboard that this is all going to work out in that many pages.
Nice.
So if you guys want, I actually do have, before we kind of go on here, I do have some stuff I can share with you guys.
Do you mind if I ask you just a very quick question?
Sure.
Deskwill team in the chat asks, what is Sporkman's least favorite utensil?
Foon.
What is it?
A foon.
A foon? That does sound like he would be his hated one.
Yeah. Well, you know what the difference between a spork and a foon is?
No, I do not.
So a foon is a spork is a 3-tined utensil, has 3 points. Okay, where a foon has 4 tines on it.
Huh. Seriously?
Yes.
So it's the same. It's a similar shape, though.
Yes, similar shape.
That's really funny.
Yeah, and that's also a little bit of a hint for stuff to come.
I know. I like the implications there. That's definitely awesome. So now we have you up on the screen here.
Yep. So here, if you take a look here on this is the original concept draw done by Chris in '97.
Oh wow, nice, dude.
So yeah, so that was the original concept. Now this is what Gifney sent us. So this was one of the first images.
Wow,
This was the second one, and then
I
that was
love this.
those were the, if you take a look at those were all the different styles that he did. This was the final one, but these were the other three that he came back with. And if you take a look, so he even gives a little homage to Tim, Bruce Timm, and stuff like
Wow,
that.
that's cool. I love seeing
Mhm.
the evolution of Sporkman. That's really fun.
So yeah.
Very cool. Mm-hmm.
All right. So all right, sorry about that. I just wanted to
No
kind of
worries.
share that. So we
That,
No,
that
that's
that's always
great.
something too that is just a for me. I've always enjoyed. I like getting different art books that'll like I got the art of Rogue One and stuff like that, where you can actually look at it and kind of see how ideas start and then they're kind of just tweaked and sculpted and eventually to where stuff ends up. And it's interesting. I mean, sometimes I look at stuff like that and I see concepts that I actually like better than the finished product, but
Right, yeah.
it's always neat kind of seeing that evolution as a project goes along. And that's something as far as bonus content we like to showcase with like Sporkman Goes to Japan. We have a like an alternate version of the character of Natsumi. The first way she was drawn, and then when he said, okay, well, kind of change up this and this, and I always enjoy stuff like that.
No, yeah, that is really fun to see the process of how it all comes together. Really.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of allows you to kind of see the mind of the artist themselves too, and seeing how they think about the proportions and what they see going on.
And the nice thing is, one thing I have to say about Gifney, and this is one of the great things, when an artist can really hit what you're looking for, it's almost like another lightning in the bottle, because there was a lot of things once we nailed down like the base characters, especially with Japan. We really let Gifney go to town. We gave him some input, but it wasn't like we gave some direction for the most part. But from there, he was doing mostly everything he himself. The facial expressions. He really, and I talked to him recently when we ran the last campaign, and he even said, he's like, man, I really want to work with you guys again. He's like, I love Sporkman. This is the first project that we did as a company, or his company's called Array Studios, and that was the first thing they ever did, like as a company. Even though he did, like all the guys he worked with did artwork separately, but Sporkman was one of the first things they did as a company. So it's kind of like almost their beginning. It was our beginning too. So and he's really excited to see Sporkman come back again, because it was something he loved. It was a labor of love for him, like us.
No, that's amazing.
One thing that he was able to do really well that I think was great was as far as body language for characters, where I wouldn't necessarily give the direction of like he shrugs his shoulders or something like that, but he would be able to take just from what was written in the script that was the appropriate body language to go with the dialogue and stuff like that. And that was really a treat, when we would get into stuff and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's cool. He gets it, with what we're saying. He gets the body language that will go with the different dialogue to make everything work. And it was really a treat.
That sounds like it was a match made in heaven, really, pretty much. I mean, geez, you can really ask for a better team.
Yeah, 100%. I'm proud. In all honesty, I mean, I am proud of working with everybody that we've done. Working with Chris, Eric, on the original concept, and then getting to work with Giffany and talking with him over the years, and then now the new team that's going to be coming in. I'm really excited to work with Jay Oshiro. We are going to be moving around our colorist. He's going to be shifting possibly to our new project, and we're looking to bring somebody else on board for the coloring. Talking to a few people here, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to, and looking to see what we can do to expand upon the project.
Speaking of which, we talked a little bit at the very beginning about your upcoming crowdfunding campaign, and it's set to start sometime this month. What can you guys tell us about what you guys have up with that?
So what we decided to do, I don't know, Eric, did you want to take this or do you want me?
I think you know a little bit more about it than I do because you've been kind of working on setting this whole thing up.
Okay, so what we decided to do, Eric and I, we decided to, one of the things we always wanted to do was have our stuff in color. Because just one, when you and I know you both are creators, so you understand this. When you don't have the funds, you gotta go with what you can go with. So unfortunately, coloring was something we kind of we're like, we don't have the money for that. Maybe down the road. So let's just release stuff in black and white. Well, now that of course, the internet has caught up, and we now have crowdfunding and stuff like that. Because Eric will actually tell you, like, what was it, 2007 or 2006? I sent him a message. Hey, there's this new crowdfunding site called Indiegogo.
Yeah, I just a couple months ago was going through. I apparently kept like almost every email correspondence we had about Sporkman, going all the way back from like the first time Gifney contacted us and all this stuff. And I was telling Chuck, I said, yeah, it's hilarious. I said, you're telling us about, oh yeah, there's this crowdfunding called Kickstarter and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, not only on top of that, then when Comixology came alive, I'm like, dude, there's this digital thing called Comixology. We can put our comic up there, So we were actually kind of looking on all these forefronts of stuff, but we kind of didn't have the stuff digitally wise that we could do, so we could actually move to those campaigns until later on. So anyhow, one of the things we've always wanted to do was we wanted to always have Sporkman as kind of like a single issue, because it's all one story. Everybody could pick the one story up, not have to, buy the other ones if they didn't want to, but they could get everything in one issue. So we really wanted to combine it as a trade. The other thing too is we wanted to get it colorized, and we kind of wanted to, based on some feedback that I've gotten from a few people in the comics community about the lettering, and this was also a thing. Eric and I had some issues with the lettering too on the Japan, so we kind of wanted to kind of give it a fresh new start because we had really good master files. So we're like, hey, let's just start fresh and clean. Let's bring a colorist on board and let's get it relettered. So that's really what that's what the Indiegogo is about. It's about getting this remastered done. Really, that's what it is. Feel like we always tease about not being like George Lucas. Here we are being like George Lucas.
Hey, at least it's not in 3D, right?
Well, really, like, for a long time, we didn't do anything with Sporkman because it was something that had cost us money to do. And, there wasn't any distribution. There wasn't digital. It was literally you had to meet someone face to face or go to an LCS and hope that they'll, on consignment, carry some issues. So it was one of those things where it was a hobby that had cost us money, and we weren't really making a return. So it kind of just went dormant, and we knew we wanted to do more stories. But we just never dedicated the time to trying to do anything. And really it was Chuck that kind of lit the fire under my butt, that he's like, look, we've been talking about this for years. We want to do like more Sporkman stuff. Let's do that. And the first decision we came to was we said, well, you know what? We do have product. It's just nobody knows about it. So let's maximize what we can do with our existing assets and our existing products. So we said we're basically almost launching Sporkman from scratch and treating it as if it's all new. So
like a reboot in a way.
Yeah. Like a relaunch. And so the first thing we said was, okay, can we get conventions colorized? Because we'd really like to be able to do stuff in color now that you can actually raise the funds for that sort of thing. So we were able to get a real good deal on the coloring for conventions. We got that colorized. And then we said, okay, before we do new stories, again, a lot of people haven't read the stuff we already have. Let's redo Japan in color. And as Chuck said, the fact that we wanted to keep all the storylines contained, we said, let's put them all together as a trade. And from here on out, if we tell a story that takes 50 pages to tell the story, we're going to do it in 50 pages. If we have one that takes 100, we'll do 100. If we have one that takes 24, we'll do 24. Whereas when we did Japan, we were still kind of in that mindset of trying to keep to a normal page count format, or as close to that as possible. Which is part of the reason why
cost wise, back then, in 2007, 2008, 2009, we were still kind of in the infancy of, Kickstarter and, these crowdfunding campaigns and stuff like that. They were kind of still a stab in the dark,
Yeah.
So we were with Japan looking at, okay, we get one issue out, and then hopefully that whets people's appetite to get issue 2 when that comes out. And so we put out the 1, and then I think within a year we put out the 2nd, and then I think it was a pretty long delay, like almost a year and a half, I think, till we got
almost 2 years,
till we got issue 3 out, because we had to go back and actually pay for another issue to be done that we didn't think we would need. Whereas now we can kind of plan all that in advance. So we're like, we want to make Goes to Japan what from here on out the format would be, which is you get a self-contained story altogether, regardless of the length.
And so with it, this upcoming crowdfunding now. Sorry, again, is it Indiegogo or Kickstarter? Sorry,
we're going to be doing Indiegogo. So reason being we're going to do the Indiegogo is because they have they have a little bit better options. I for one like Indiegogo over Kickstarter. I don't. My only reason for that is because of their funding options. Kickstarter I have no issue with. They have a functionality in Indiegogo I think is a little bit better. I like for people. Most people seem to be liking that they're billed right away and it's out. They don't have to worry about it. Whereas, with Kickstarter, everybody's like, well, you got to make sure you have the money in there. And you know what I mean? When the campaign ends and stuff like that. So talking to most people, they like that functionality,
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And something I thought was interesting about your campaign is it sounded like that it's not just a remaster for this issue, but it's like, is kind of along the lines of your relaunching the title, is that it's going to be for continued Sporkman adventures into the future.
Yeah, so it's not like this one and done thing. You know what I mean? This is, really Sporkman. There's a reason why our studio is called Sporkman Studios. Sporkman is our flagship character. Granted, we have all these other stories we want to tell, with Natsumi, Volt, and, all these other different characters that we really like. But Sporkman is our main thing. That's the one we really want to focus on because he is, for all intents and purposes, our flagship character, anyhow, with going to the Sporkman remaster, like you said, it is a completely relaunch. Our first campaign did fail, unfortunately. We did fall. I think we raised like 60%, but we were at a fixed funding. So with the fixed funding, unfortunately, you don't raise the money, you don't get it.
Right, so, that is the downside of that option, unfortunately.
That is the downside. So this time we are talking about maybe going with flexible funding because it does. I have talked to a lot of people and they're kind of more open to that. And I've seen with other campaigns, especially, Charger did that. And there was a few other ones that did that, and they actually were able to get their comic out still. So if we're able to raise, and based on what we raise, that's why our funding is at the level we have it at, because we were very close. Honestly, we were almost, and I'll be honest, we even though we are at 7,500 for the goal, we raised almost $4,000.
Yeah, no, I thought that was you guys were looking really strong there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing, some people may look at the goal and they go, wow, it's kind of a high goal, but a lot of people, they're raising funds to do their first issue, and what people are getting is essentially, almost 4 average comics worth of content by the
Yeah.
time all said and done. It's what, 96 pages, I think.
It's 91 pages of actual story, and then I think we haven't settled. I think we're settling about maybe 10 to 15 bonus pages, and possibly if we meet our goal, we are talking about possibly doing an Ash can.
So, Duskwell team in the chat asks any details about the crowdfunding you like to talk about, such as goal, stretch goals, rewards, etc.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. Yeah, that's actually something. If you guys don't mind, let me go here. Now, I don't have all the tiers done yet, but I'll give you guys a kind of an overview. And there are some things that are going to change a little bit with the actual Indiegogo in terms of what the layout is and stuff like that. But if you guys wanted to go ahead, I will do a screen share. So let me actually pull this over here. Give me one moment here. Okay. So. Yeah, so our goal, our funding goal is going to be right now. I have it set at 5,000 because a lot of it comes down to what the cost is going to cover. Like because we still have to get the some of the bonus feature things like the trading cards and stuff like that. So we're going to offer a trading card. We're going to be doing a poster, T-shirts. So, we want to account for all that. So, we may raise it up. But right now, our starting goal is 5,000. That will pay for getting, our letterist, which, like I said, is going to be Jay Ashiro. For those who don't know him, him and his wife, Kat, own 01 Publishing. He does the Case File Arkham series. So he has been grateful to come on board to help us re-letter the project. So and that's because he does also like the character too. So I think that's been a great thing. And then that will also pay for the colorist too. And then then the other things are like getting stuff printed and shipped and stuff like that. So, but this is the general overview of what the project is going to look like. I do have our Sporkman Goes to Japan trailer that we had from the last campaign, and then where some of the other things here. I have the covers. Then I have the original poster done by Killbox, which he's actually going to be offering that. So that's going to be one of the rewards is if somebody actually at one of the tiers will be able to back and they'll get the original art piece from the box.
The original, not just. Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to do the same thing with, I'm going to actually be pleased to announce, I did this the other night, Brad Ashworth from Pencil for Life, he's doing his own project right now. He was grateful to come on board and do a cover for us. So,
really? Oh, yeah. Wow.
So okay. I actually have that. I'll show you what the tentative design look like. We are going to be doing some changes, but that way you guys can see it. And we have a few pages that were colored, but they're going to change a little bit because the colors, we're getting a different colorist. So that way, people can see here. So our starting tier is actually going to start at $12 or $1. I mean, everybody does that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Just for anyone who wants to help support the project, but maybe can't help.
Yeah,
if 5,000 people back us at only $1, hey, we can be fully funded,
right?
For sure.
A cup of a coffee, one coffee,
for sure. So what we're going to do is our actual buy-in is going to be $12. What this will get you for $12 is going to get you all 3 issues, okay, in floppy, and then you're also going to get the digital at the same price, the same thing. Plus, then you will also get a poster of the kill box. Art piece, and then we're also going to be giving you a decal. So basically, the decal and the poster are going to be at every level, but then we're going to go from there. So the next tier is going to be $25. We'll get you the. Did we set 20 or 25, Eric?
I think 25.
25. Okay, so 25 will get you the trade of the Sporkman Goes to Japan. You'll get the decal, and then you'll also get the poster. All right, and I'll actually show you guys here. So this is actually the poster colorized by Ninja of your friendly neighborhood Ninja. So that way you guys can see that then when that comes up.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah, that's looking really nice.
yeah. So we originally were looking at that as the cover, but we felt we kind of really liked it, but we felt, hey, why don't we just do it as a poster? Because we're really big fans of posters, so we wanted something kind of more that was more worthy of being a poster. Because static images are really good as posters and stuff like that. So, and then when we were talking with Brad, so then that's when he came along. So yeah, that's going to be. So like I said, that's going to be the original art. That's going to be one of the tiers. There's going to be a separate tier on that, where if you'll get the trade paperback, you'll get the you'll get a poster plus then the original art piece. We haven't figured out the price yet on that.
There's also going to be limited high tiers that will include an articulated 3 3/4 inch Sporkman action figure.
Yep, there's only going to be 5 of those.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's because they're all handcrafted.
All done by me. And they're not going to be crap. I'm actually really good at figure customization. Been doing it for a number of years.
Wow, that's cool.
Like the parts that we're making are like cast resin and stuff like that. The sporks and the head and all that's been like hand sculpted, and so we're going to make a limited number of those.
And the bodies are actually how we were able to do that is the bodies actually come from a company called Boss Fight Studios. They actually have they have blanks, so you can actually take those blanks and you can customize your own figures.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty, yeah. That's really clever.
Yeah, so it allows a lot of options, especially if you can't, because figure making. If you want to go make your figure, you're spending several thousands of dollars, upwards to $20,000 to $30,000 sometimes, depending on how many figures you want. Because that's something we were looking at down the road, possibly doing and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, and that's something that, I know you guys and us have talked about, possibly doing too. So yeah, there was something. Now we do actually, hopefully, we'll have the prototype finish here once Eric gets moved and stuff like that. So hopefully, we'll be able to give. We do have some. Eric, you still have your videos, right?
Yeah, because I had uploaded some videos where I was making the little S emblems for the chest and stuff like that.
So, all right. So then also we are going to the other tier, like I said, is going to be there is going to be a tier for the Brad cover. So this is the tentative design for the cover. Now there are a couple things we are changing on the cover. Matter of fact, actually, the mech is going to go away. We're actually going to change that to we're going to have like a far shot of Shogun Z there. And since he's the main character, the villain, so we're gonna have him there, and then there's a couple other things that are gonna change with Sporkman and Natsumi and stuff like that. But that's a tentative outlook design of what it's gonna look like.
And the layout, of the characters and kind of how the feel of it will look as well.
Yeah,
that looks really awesome.
Yeah, it's really dynamic.
Even just as a regular layout too.
Yeah, and that was something we kind of went back and forth on, because we both really liked Killbox's cover. But, the thing is, we were like, well, it's not, like, wowing us. You know what I mean? There wasn't that super punch. I mean, it's great. It's a fantastic piece of art, and I love it.
Yeah, covers are actually, like a thing where that's one of the few times where, like, Chuck and I, like, I think we both have, like, our own taste.
Yeah,
with covers, because I know, like, for example, like some of my favorite movie posters are ones that people would consider super straightforward. Like, for example, Jaws, very, very simplistic design. Return of the Jedi, the poster where it's just the two hands holding the lightsaber. I like a lot of art pieces like that where there's like one bold thing within it where it's very straightforward and stuff, because I actually had a sketch idea where I just sketched it down and I said, well, what do you think about this? Do you get what I'm going for? And Chuck's like, yeah, but I don't know how interesting it is. And I'm like, that cover like rocks. I would love to see a cover like that. but you know, maybe my taste is different. The
Well, you know, and actually, the thing is, we had talked about it because that's one of the things is, you know, Eric, the first two covers for Japan, or the first and third one of Japan are like Eric's two covers, and they're very, very, like he said, they're like a collage of like everything that was going on and stuff like that. Whereas for me, issue 2 was my favorite cover, and I'll actually scroll back up here for everybody here. So for me, issue 2, this is issue 1's cover. Issue 1's cover, you know, it's kind of like you're getting an idea of what the first issue is about. And you see, you know, you're seeing the collage of Sporkman, and you see, you know, Natsumi and Shogun Z in the background. So you get an idea. For me, like, I love dynamic, you know, I love dynamic things. So issue 2 for me is like one of like the most favorite, you know, I'll cover, because I love, you know, it gives me that action pose and stuff like that, and it feels like he's really going up against something big, you know. And then issue 3, you know, is once again it's that whole, it's kind of like that's really more of a homage thing, you know, to the Sentai superheroes and to the, you know, to the Japanese industry, you know, the manga, anime, and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
nice. That's excellent. I really like that.
Yeah, so, you know, it gives a lot of different dynamic tastes, you know, and that's the thing is with the Killbox cover, kind of gave us that world of both of them giving that little dynamic feel, but at the same time, it gave that you know, that stoic look. And we liked it. We really did. We do like it. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't like it. We do love it, but we felt like, wow, okay, we need something a little bit different. I think this serves better as a poster, because that's something that, you know, somebody could put on their wall. You know, it works as a poster. And then, you know, we're, you know, talking with Brad and stuff like that, and he you know, and I am very grateful that Eric kind of, you know, we kind of did still. I actually think, Eric, I think we kind of still did. We both kind of give a take on the new cover, even. You know, we took the Z-Mech out and we put Shogun Z in, because I know you really wanted to have all 3 characters, you know, the 3 main characters on the cover.
Yeah, what I liked doing with Shogun Z's like helmet and stuff like that in the first issue, we're going to do something similar on this cover, where we're kind of doing a thing almost like you know, Darth Vader, and you see his helmet just kind of looming over the other characters and stuff going on a lot of Star Wars posters. We're kind of like doing the same thing with Shogun Z, like he's the threat looming over the heroes and everything.
That's
awesome.
A really cool concept for that.
Yeah, no, I really like that as well. And you know, oh shoot, darn, I totally lost my train of thought on that. I was going to ask you a question about the cover. Is there any chance in the trade paperback, are you guys thinking about possibly including the original covers in that?
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to be in there.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, they're still going to be in there, because, you know, I want people to, you know, I don't want them to miss out, even though they're not getting the floppies. I still want them to get the original covers.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because, you know, those covers are very dynamic. One thing Eric and I talked about, you know, one of the things I know him as a creator, he likes his cover to fit what's inside the project, you know, whereas me, you know, I'm okay with the person, you know, the outside cover, you know, needs to be able to pull in a broader audience and stuff like that, you know, even though I know Gifney's art can stand on its own, you know, we're doing this, we just need something a little bit more dynamic to pull people in.
So how do you guys go about choosing the dynamic of like who goes with what cover and who has more, you know, say? Is it just based on who has an idea on what cover might be good?
I think all the covers, I don't know about 2, but I know 1 and 3 were kind of my idea.
Yeah, I think two we both agreed on. We wanted something. We didn't want the same cover for 1 and we didn't want the same cover for every single one. So I know him and I, we talked about it. We kind of both felt like it would be kind of cool seeing Sporkman go against the the crab monster and stuff like that. We're like, yeah, we really should have something with the crab monster and Sporkman. And Gifney really took it from there. I mean, you know, honestly, it was really all Gifney who
You know, that
designed
was so long ago, but I think issue two's cover was created last
Yes.
because, like I said, originally we thought it was going to fit in 2 issues, and so we kind of had those 2 cover ideas. And then when we had to make a third, we said, okay, well, you know, the giant mech doesn't show up until the 3rd issue, so
Yeah.
that cover wouldn't be appropriate for issue 2. That has to move to 3, and then okay, what do we pick for the middle now? And that was one of the big scenes that took place in issue 2. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to put the crab creature in issue 2 then for the cover.
And it really does flow, though. I mean, that cover really flows with because it really is the concept. You know, it is, once again, all 3 covers really feel, you know, they fit the whole Japan theme. You know, you know, because, you know, with a lot of manga covers, and I know both of you guys read a lot of manga too, you get those collage images. You know what I mean? Especially like if you're reading any My Hero Academia or stuff like that, you get those heroes. But then at the same point, you'll get another issue that are very very dynamic, you know what I mean, very actionish and stuff like that, you know. So I think they're very they're homage to that, to Japan. And really, that's what I'm saying. This whole series is not just a homage to American comics, but it's also homage to the Japanese industry too, taking 2 things that we both really love and creating something, giving us something very unique.
And the 3 issues really is a 3-act story. Yeah. That you're getting. You're getting Act 1 in issue 1, Act 2 in issue 2. You know, it really flows well in that way. Which, of course, with the trade, they can just read the whole thing at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the story ideas that we have with Sporkman, a lot of it is homages to different genres and stuff like that. A lot of it, you know, comes from our fandom of, you know, film and TV and comics and stuff like that. So a lot of it comes down to, wouldn't it be fun to throw Sporkman into the middle of, in this case, you know, an anime world? You know, wouldn't it be fun to throw Sporkman in outer space or something like that?
I would love to see Sporkman goes to space or whatever we call it.
Yeah. So with a lot of the issues that we're going to do, a lot of them are kind of homages where someone can read it and they'll be like, I see what's going on with this. There's one where it's going to be a very Indiana Jones type adventure. The next one that we're going to be working on after this campaign, which is about 90% written, is Sporkman on the High Seas, where we do a lot of water related film and TV and stuff homages.
That's excellent. Speaking of which, I was going to say, I wanted to ask about, you know, where he might be coming next. So that's officially his next adventure, is Sporkman.
Yeah, and it's actually going to have, it's going to be introducing a new hero, and the villain from it actually appears in one of, I'm not going to say who, but within conventions or Japan, you'll be introduced to a villain that was in there somewhere.
So yeah, real quick, I just wanted to do, so, you know, then what I did was on the next Indiegogo, just showing some sample pages for everything here for everybody, so that way they can see some of the images. You know, we have, you know, the colors there, you know, here, and then we have, you know, issue 2. We have some, you know, really good. You know, one of the great things is Giffney is fantastic for action stuff. I mean, he's got a really good eye for action, you know. So yeah, so I think everybody's going to really love this project. I know we do. You know, it was a wonderful thing to write. It was very hard to write. I know, Eric, we went back and forth a lot for hours and hours.
Oh, I know. A lot of it for us came down to like villain motivation. which I even on Sporkman on the High Seas, we went around a couple times about, okay, does this make sense, for the villain to be doing this? So that always seems to be the part that we have the most trouble with, is making sure that the villain makes sense for the story. And I'm pretty happy with how everything went down with Japan. It was a bumpy road. Like I said, conventions was just ridiculously easy the whole way through, and spoiled us. So
it's a bit of a different ball game.
Yeah, there's that old
Yeah.
saying, lightning never strikes, the same thing twice. Both Japan and Sporkman on the High Seas have been a labor. It really has tested us as writers. Because Sporkman on the there was things. One of the elements from Japan that never actually made it in there was the original element for Shogun Z's. What he wanted to do, why he wanted to be the villain, why he was the villain he was. And it really came down to something we made it was this other idea we thought would be better, but just couldn't work the story. So we just changed one thing, and we're like, well, he's a samurai, why wouldn't he want control of Japan back?
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
Real quick, guys.
Yeah.
Gotta let you know that I have to hop off. It was great talking to you guys, and honestly, wish the best of luck with the campaign. Hope everything goes well and you're able to meet a few stretch goals as well.
That would be awesome, because I'd love for it to make enough where we can afford to do the little mini issue in it, because it's not written yet. We have a general idea what we want to do, but it would actually involve the character of Natsumi, not Sporkman, but it will develop her character a little bit more, and it'll kind of take place like part of the aftermath of what happens in Goes to Japan.
Oh,
That's
man,
awesome.
that is really great. But,
Yeah, so that paves the way for the future for the returns to Japan, and also when we want to go to do the side stories for Natsumi.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. But yeah, thanks again, hey Matt. We know you got to run, but we appreciate you joining with us on this interview today, and we'll see you for the podcast, man.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great one, and wish the best of luck.
All right, have a great night, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
So, I wanted to ask you guys, what kind of inspired you guys to create an all-ages superhero like Sporkman?
I don't think it was really something where we set out to say we want it to be all ages. It just felt natural to be that way. We're dealing with comedy, so it's like Sporkman isn't edgy. It's not, let's push what we can do, with like the violence or language or anything like that. And a lot of the comedy just came out of like what we think is funny. And I've never personally been like a crude humor type of guy usually. Like I can go and laugh my ass off at like an old Bob Hope movie or something though. So I think a lot of excuse me, a lot of that wasn't intentional, but it is nice that we actually have something that it's not dumbed down for kids or anything like that.
Right,
so
that's what I kind of like about it, because sometimes when people say all ages, they just mean kids titles, but here truly, I it seems like that it really is for anybody who can enjoy this book.
Yeah, it is. We don't have anything in that really is objectionable for kids, because that just tends not to be the way we write.
Yeah.
Some of the ideas we have for other non-Sporkman comics, would be a little bit, darker. But I'm not one of those people that likes to play HBO and say we're gonna go edgy Not because it's necessarily better quality, but just because we can. And it's edgy and dark. You know, that's just not how we are.
I think they both serve their purposes. I'm the type of person, and Eric will tell you. I mean, my favorite superhero is I have a dichotomy. My favorite Marvel superhero is Neymar, who is like the world's largest dick, and he's an anti-hero. But my favorite DC hero is Superman. Because growing up with Superman, he's very he represents that hope, and we were talking about and stuff like that. Where with Eric, we talk about Eric's more of a Marvel guy. He's more into those kind of those superheroes. But we always talk about it. They have their time and place. One of the things I felt that I was always lacking, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to keep that, is we're missing in the current state of comics, we're missing that comic for people of all ages that everybody can enjoy, from their kids to 99 or 100, however old you are, and you can actually have that fun and read it and remind them, give that little nostalgia. Hey, I remember that as a kid, but
there's a lot in mainstream comics right now that if I had a young kid, I probably wouldn't want them reading it.
Oh yeah,
definitely. For sure. So we really, the one of the things that we did when we set this out to be, once we kind of knew we were going to go with an all age things, like, well, there are a lot of things we try to keep in line. Like, there's no swearing. I'll be honest with you. There was a line Chris even had Sporkman saying Jeebus, which was done by Homer Simpson. And both Eric and I were like, no, we don't even want that in there, because we kind of wanted to keep it, you know what I mean? Keep it simple. There's that whole thing, keep it simple, stupid.
And one thing that's been very important to us, like from the beginning, is tone. There's been a lot of times where we would go do something and be like, is that going to be too jarring? Like if you had an incredibly violent death or something like that, it would be kind of jarring. It's like, oh, here's this kind of fun, silly, carefree comic, and now like, whoa, things just got real. It might be kind of jarring. So there's been times where we said, okay, what can we do and not have it suddenly not feel like a Sporkman comic. And I know, like, one thing that we want to have as a rule in our universe is, if someone dies, they're dead. If you don't see a body, okay, well, maybe they could come back or something. But if it's one of those situations where it's quite obvious they died, no, we're not going to pull some trick out of our ass a couple years down the line.
Parachutes, right?
Yeah. Oh, they're back. It's going to be like, no, they're dead. But it's
a fine line you have to balance, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You have to say, okay, well, could you take a serious thing like that, like someone dying, and how do you make it work? Obviously some stuff you don't want to take it too lightly. You want to treat everything with a certain amount of weight, a certain amount of the appropriate weight for it. But you don't want to go too far off in one direction where it's suddenly nowhere funny. I mean, quite honestly, a good example would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You throw that out as a concept, and it is so absurd, but it is played completely straight. And so they can go kind of dark with that, because they're saying, you know what, this is the tone of the comic, and if you want to get on board, get on board. You're going to be dealing with an absurd comic, a absurd concept, but it's going to have some heavy weight to it. And with us, we wanted to go a little bit more carefree and stuff like that. So yeah, could we do like a really dark version of Sporkman and have it incredibly violent and brutal, and have the humor be very gallows humor or whatever? We could. it's not out of the question, but it wouldn't feel appropriate to us. You set a tone, and you kind of have to stick with it. If you deviate too far from that, you're not really being true to what you created.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons I have with modern comics, like especially like this whole Bendis run. Superman. For me, it's been so incredibly frustrating because I don't see Superman as this dark character. I don't see him as you know what I mean. He would not go cheat on Lois Lane. He would not treat his kid like crap, and you know what I mean. I don't buy any of that stuff. That is not Superman.
And I think it's different if you reboot and you say, I'm going to go about this in a different way, like the Battlestar Galactica reboot. They change some stuff and they say, okay, well we're going to make it darker or whatever. That's fine. That's a reboot. If we did 20 issues of Sporkman and then we came back to it after a few years and said, okay, we're going to reboot this and we're going to do like a dark version of it.
Like a Spider-Man 2099 version of
it's a different it's a different thing, and it's almost like a recipe where you say, okay, here's the basic recipe on how to make a dish, but you're going to add some different ingredients. That's one thing. You're modifying something from the original recipe. Yeah. But you have to be very careful about doing that partway through, because the readers will, like Chuck said with Superman, the readers will say, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. Well, why isn't it right? Because when they got on board, they were expecting one thing, and partway through, you change it around on them, and they're going to see through that and be like, you know what? This is no longer what I liked about it. And everything, people have different tastes. There's people that will love Sporkman. There's people that will just be like, not for me. But you don't want to get someone on board who likes the dish you're preparing and then say, haha, this one has anchovies on it,
Right. You don't want to have them coming back for seconds each time,
Yeah.
So no, that's an interesting point. So consistency is something that you guys value in your work.
Exactly, 100%.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That was something I'm a big fan of the Hellblazer series, and they did a really good job of keeping the character consistent throughout the run, and so I totally get what you mean.
And even going into Hellblazer, and then even going into now Constantine, that character, even though it's a 52 version or a rebirth version, he's still, a lot of those same elements are there from him.
True. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So
they did a good job with that.
Yeah, so it's not like DC on certain characters kind of went all willy-nilly. It's just certain ones they've done that, and Marvel's done the same thing. There is a reason being, for me, the way I look at it is, Schuster and Siegel created Superman to be a certain way, and they allowed a certain, elements to kind of lead Superman the way it is. Because you look at Superman now, he's nowhere close to what he was originally, because originally, he was a socialist. He was, all the super kind of were vigilante type heroes. When we talked about, Batman killing in the first issue, and, so things do deviate, but a lot of
it comes down to the writers, because the writers are going to want to do certain things where they say, I have a concept and I'd like to take this spin on a character. And, I guess that's okay if you're the creator and the writer and it's your character, but it's a little bit more precious when it's a business, and the business, the company basically owns the character. And that's where I think,
not only that, but these characters that have been around for a long time, that have been,
have
long histories,
and I think that's some, where the editor, an editor comes in, or whoever
right, that would help for sure,
the authority, and say, hey, you know what, this is a creative idea you have, but it doesn't really fit with our view of this character and how they're supposed to be portrayed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I could totally really see that. Dust Cool says, reboots are fine so long as they do their own spin and they do it well enough. I don't know why, but it somehow seems to be getting harder and harder to keep consistency in stories.
I think a lot of that comes back to, in all honesty, these editors change and they don't have a meta. Basically, we're coming back to the whole meta story. You know what I mean? They don't have an overall arcing story, and they don't have a, you know, they don't have their timelines, and it's all messed up. You know, and so. You know, that's where actually one reason why DC's kind of cool. I like that the fact when they do their reboots, like, you know, Infinite Crisis and stuff like that, allows them to kind of reinvent the character and stuff like that, you know. Whereas, you know, Marvel, they're on this sliding scale. Well, to me, Spider-Man is not Spider-Man anymore. When you're talking Spider-Man, he's running into, you know, going into a foreign country and trying to take over that with his company. That's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man's, he's a local hero. You know, that's how I see Spider-Man, you know, because that's the way Stan Lee and Steve Ditko looked at him. That's to me, that's the meta of the character. Yeah, you might have some world building things like Secret Wars and stuff like that, but ultimately, where is the character does best? He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
And I've always been, you know, I think part of that too comes down to the need of the companies to keep it going. You know, they're whatever their cash cows are, keep them going. And, you know, hey, as a business, I understand, you know, they have those properties because they want to be able to continue to make money with them. But I know for me as a reader and even, you know, a watcher of television, I've always appreciated limited series where you get a story and then you're good, you're done. And, you know, a lot of that comes through on how we're writing Sporkman, where we're not worried about doing issue 1, 2, 3 and keep going on ad nauseum forever until it eventually sucks because we're out of ideas. Which, unfortunately, there's a lot of shows like that they don't know when to stop. They're like, well, hey, this is making money. We're going to keep going, and eventually they cancel after they're putting out crap because, you know, they should have picked an ending. And I always appreciate that when a series of any sort knows how it's going to end and they have a story arc. Even if that story arc is going to be 5 years long, I like the fact that they know where they're going and that they always have that destination in mind.
Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah.
I think it controls a lot too. You get less filler, and that's not to say that I would want it to always be large story arcs like that. Like that's kind of a given on TV now. There's no standalone episodes. Like
very few shows do that these days.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be you could tune in to, you know, whether it was MacGyver, Star Trek, whatever. You could just watch an episode and have a complete story. Now you can't watch a single episode of any season of any show without having watched every single episode.
I blame Breaking Bad for that, really. It started it, now everyone does it, really.
Yeah. So it's, you know, that's. I don't mean it that way as far as every episode has to be part of a story arc. You can have filler, but you still need to say there's certain key points between the beginning, middle, and end. You have to hit this beat. You have to do this with your characters, whatever, to get to the end. If you have some filler in between those, that's fine. As long as you know where you're going. And I have a feeling like a lot of stuff, especially mainstream comics, where, you know, they want to keep them going forever. They may say, well, where are we going in a story arc? But they don't know anything beyond that story arc, and then the next story arc and the next story arc.
Right. I mean, that is something that kind of excites me about the Marvel movies versus the comics, is whereas there's, you know, supposedly coming this next movie, there's going to be true endings to some of these characters, which, you know, you've never really seen in the comics, which is kind of an interesting concept, really, because it does give you, it goes along with what you're saying about a story needing a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, and I think there is a separation too between how creators handle things and how businesses handle things. You know, a business, they would be like, well, why do we want to tell a story about, Superman retiring or whatever? Because we want to sell issues the next month and the next month and the next month. Why would we ever end that and then have to worry about a new product? Whereas I think from a creator's perspective, most creators don't want to do the same thing forever. They want to, do different projects and maybe come back to stuff they love, but they want some sort of variety. So I think it's a lot easier for creators, especially indie creators, even if they do it as a business, to say, you know what, I'm going to tell the story arc of this character, and then I'm done, and then I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So
And
I
was going to say you're seeing it because you have you're bringing up points, Kate, who are talking about Graveyard Shift. John's got Graveyard Shift running. He's got a couple other ones, so it's not like we got one. He's working entirely on Graveyard Shift. And I think that's really what's a great thing. He's doing his own project, but yet he's also working on all these other projects. Same thing. We want to be able to write Sporkman. Like you said, that's our bread and butter. That's our main character. But we got these other ideas that we want to do too. So we have talked about, we don't want to constantly be writing Sporkman all the time. We're going to get tired out of that. So by changing it up, maybe once a year or once every couple of years, that gives the fresh blood keep going.
So is this something that you want to develop into a bit of a shared universe for Sporkman?
Sporkman's kind of his own thing, and the funny thing is, we're Sporkman Studios and he's our flagship character. Most of the other ideas we have are not comedy. and like the two next ones that Chuck and I are probably going to be working on, they're both actually rather dark. So it'll be like Sporkman Studios, and then it's like this really,
Well, the interesting though is the one character that we are writing, we're working on, actually started out in the Sporkman universe. It's a character. I love DC Online. I'm a huge fan of DC Online. So we're, when they started coming out, when they first launched back on the PS3, I'm like, yeah, I really want electricity powers, because I always liked electricity powers. I think they're cool, because there's a lot of things you could do with electricity. You could have it as attack powers, or like like saving people, and you know what I mean. It creates a lot of bioenergy, and so you can have a lot of play with that. So I created this character, and originally his name was called Captain Chaos, because the problem was, he could not control the electric powers. And we were going to have this running gag where in the Sporkman universe, he would actually be causing more accidents, and nobody wanted to be with him. The only character that would work with him was Sporkman. But over time, as I started creating the character more and more, he started just drifting more away from what we originally envisioned. So like his name changed. It was now called Volt Chaos because of him. We wanted, because there's too many captains out there. So we're like, well, what if I come up with Volt? Because his name is Voltage Chaos. So we shortened it to Volt Chaos. And so it just kept on. Then we were originally going to come up with this idea. We kind of come up with our Justice League thing. We're like, well, what if we made him more like the Green Lantern type character? But he's based in, he's a cop, and and all of a sudden it just like kept getting further and further. Finally, Eric. I was like, Eric, dude, I think we need to just create him as his own universe. He's like, yeah. And when I came up with this whole idea with Volt Chaos Myth Gods, that really just kind of just solidified its own universe.
Wow. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So you actually have multiple kind of different series in mind already.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And then the project that I'm going to be working on, called Wraith, that has nothing to do with either universe. That's kind of its own thing, and I actually plan on doing that as a graphic novel, where that's the whole story. You're not going to have an issue 2, 3, whatever. I'm going to tell the whole story right there, because that's a story I want to tell, and then go on to something else. I have a original sci-fi universe that I had started creating bits and pieces, like as far back as probably junior high, where I'd come up with like a planet, and I'd come up with like the whole ecology and stuff like that on the planet, and then I'd say, hey, I'm going to throw it in that universe, because I was coming up with all this sci-fi stuff. And so I would just start saying, well, okay, I'm just going to toss it into the same universe. And back when Chuck and Chris and I all met, we were talking about like the comic projects that we wanted to do, and that was the one I wanted to do, was this sci-fi universe. And with that, I actually did have a beginning and I had an end. You know, I had a large story arc where I knew I had to hit these certain beats to get to the end. And, you know, I would have filler stuff, you know, in between. But, you know, that's something I would like to do at some point. I know I'm going to have to do a lot of development on it, but I was going through a lot of files and paperwork and stuff I had, and I did not realize how much I had developed on that already, as far as you know, the world building. Like the one planet, like, you know, it had key figures in its history. It had what their version of hell is like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I put like all these ideas years ago into this universe. I'd love to go back and develop it at some point.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So I like that you guys have these side projects, and they're both gonna be more mature. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, not through intention. It's just you know,
the way it came out, I
stories
suppose.
that were like, this is a cool story I'd like to tell. And what we're probably going to do is alternate a bit. Like I said, mine, Wraith, that's going to kind of be a self-contained graphic novel thing. Chuck's is probably going to be
12 issues.
like about 12 issues. So we're probably going to do a thing where like we work on one of our projects and then we do something Sporkman and then we jump back and forth. And, you know, there's probably going to be some dovetailing while, while we're, you know, art's being done on one project, we might be writing another project and stuff like that. But we would definitely like to branch out, because what I think is great about where indie comics are right now is, you know, like I said, Chuck and I originally, we were looking at being filmmakers, and we actually have worked on a number of short little films and stuff like that. But it's certainly a lot tougher to get a movie done.
Oh yeah, I bet.
I mean, not just one thing about it, the entire process. And it is really, at the end of the day, a crapshoot. You know, no matter how much your intentions are, it is like gambling with a ton of money. And I'm even talking indie film. I'm not even talking, you know, big budget stuff. Even low budget stuff is still considerable amount of manpower and effort in it. And you can always create an amazing story, and for whatever reason, what shows up on film isn't what you're picturing, and it doesn't meet expectations. But if you can write a screenplay and you really have an idea that is good, especially if it's something where the movie budget would be incredible, because it would be, say, a big special effects extravaganza, you know, and if you cheapened out on the budget, it would be crap. Well, you still have the budget to do a comic, because an artist can draw a character flying through the air, and it's the same as if they're just drawing a picture of a car sitting on a street. You know, there's no special effects budget that make it more expensive. It's simply drawn. So, you know, if you have a really good idea for a movie, and you say, there's no way in hell I could ever get a movie made, there's, you know, I could probably never raise money to get a movie made, but for a lot less money, you could get a comic of it made.
Which is pretty amazing to think. I mean, there's a lot you can do with a comic that, you know, you can't do with movies, and you're really only limited by your imagination.
Exactly. And quite honestly, you look at the kind of movies getting made, and I'm not just talking about superhero fare, but so many movies that are getting made are based on graphic novels and comics.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you want to see your character on the silver screen? do it in a comic, and for all you know, Hollywood's going to come knocking and be like, we really like this idea, and we're going to pay you a bunch of money so that we can make a movie of it.
I mean, that's so true. Yeah. I mean, Netflix is doing that too now.
Yeah.
I just watched Polar, and that's based on a graphic novel.
Oh, really?
And that was actually pretty good.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah. I enjoyed it. So, you can't ever say, oh, well, look at the Umbrella Academy. So you have that as a TV series.
People have really been raving about that too.
Even Peter Simeti, I think they made a movie based on his comic The Chair.
Yeah. Then you have like Deadly Class.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so there's so many projects out there, and that's actually how a lot of Image stuff is written that way. Like they're written to be like either TV shows or possibly movies. So there are positives and negatives on that, but I think in all intents and purposes, if you got an idea, you don't think it's going to work as a movie or TV show, get a comic done. Like I said, far less. It is expensive, and this is something I really wish people.
Yeah, it is still expensive, but compared to doing even a low budget film and the manpower involved too, you get a writer, an artist, a colorist, a letterer. Even if those are all different people, you're talking about a crew of like 4 people, whereas like. You're hard pressed to make a movie that has 4 characters or less. It can be done, but
we're not even talking craft services yet, man.
I mean, you're not talking cinematographer, director, producer, all that.
Right? Yeah. Seriously, though.
Permits.
Eric and I and Chris actually did our first film, and we did our own film. It's called The Moving Picture, and it was not done with just and we tried to limit the amount of people that were on and we still had maybe 50, 60 people.
Whew. Yeah, jeez. That's so. Wow, no, that's incredible. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a totally different way you can do stories. I mean, if you have that story you want to tell, the comics are really a great way to do that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that probably wouldn't think of that, especially if they are truly like a fan of film and that's kind of what they want to do. But sometimes, the path to getting where you want to be isn't always a straight.
Right, and like I know plenty of comic writers who've also become writers of television as well. So there's multiple ways to get in multiple parts of that part of the industry as well.
Yeah, look at Brian Edward Hill. Actually, Brian Edward Hill, who did Killmonger, he actually wrote screenplays.
Really?
Marvel scouted him to bring stuff in. Like he actually did. He did Romulus and Image. He did like 4 or 5 projects at Image that I highly recommend. If anybody really wants to see a fantastic writer, him and Blake Norcott both started in, I do believe, writing stuff. In film and. So there's that transition period. There's never, like Eric said, there's never that straight path. Don't be afraid to explore doing comics. And this is something I really want people to understand. You're not going to be cheap. You can't go cheap on comics at all. If you go cheap, you are going to suffer in some ways. There's an artist, you're going to spend $100 on an artist. There's a reason why he's $100 versus $2,000. Just throw numbers. So you want your best, especially in your first project. You do want to. You don't want to suffer. Now, Eric and I, we got very lucky with our first comic. We got our artist for a very good price. Is he going to cost the same thing? We go to the next project, we go to the next Sporkman comic, we want him back. Is he probably going to charge the same rate? No, he's going to charge a lot more because he's grown as an artist. So. But yes, I really want people to realize that, this is one of the reasons why goals are the way they are on Indiegogos is because the fact of bringing it back to the Indiegogo, there's a reason why the goal is set at a certain amount, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 or whatever, because depending on who the team that they're working with, it is not a cheap thing. And I'll give you a good point. A colorist is not cheap at all. That's going to be your artist, your artists, and your inker and your colorist are going to be your highest cost.
Yeah, and the amazing thing too is you know, I've heard people sometimes complain about costs, like, oh, well, why do indie comics, you know, cost more than a mainstream comic? Well, for one, they're not printing, you know, thousands at a time.
It's a demand down, yeah.
But really, when you think about, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an artist. When I was little, I wanted to be an artist. I was one of those kids I could draw better than most kids, and everyone said, "Oh, he's going to grow up to be an artist." Well, my talents never really grew beyond a certain point. I certainly couldn't make a comic that was worth anything if I was drawing everything. But you know, when you think about the amount of work that goes into even one page of an issue, it's amazing it's as cheap as it is. You know? And
you look at Troy, and Troy, you know, Mr. Marvel, he did his 2 issues of Wanpool by himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Yeah.
And I can tell you, he's exhausted.
I bet.
Plus doing the work for, you know, Charger and stuff like that. So it can be done. But you know, that's why I'm kind of glad that he's made the money he's done from the Indiegogo, because the guy deserves it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But at the same point, people need to really understand there's a reason why the prices are the way they are, because nobody wants to work for a pittance. But, you know, at the same point, people do deserve to get paid certain rates. I mean, heck, Eric and I we're writing stuff and we're not even getting paid. So
I do tell you one thing though. I don't think I would want to draw my own comic.
Yeah.
Like, really? It would be one thing to draw other people's comics, because I think the collaborative effort is kind of cool, where you can kind of take their idea and like morph it into a way that, you know, hopefully they're happy with and everything. And I enjoy artists doing that, where I can say, this is kind of what I want to see. And then when they deliver the product, it's like Christmas time.
Yeah.
When you actually start seeing the art develop from a sketch to being finished and inked and everything, it's really cool. And there is no feeling like opening up a box and you have physically in your hand your comic for the first time. Every issue, it feels amazing.
You know, I actually said that to Cody, because when he was talking about, you know, Jack Irons coming in for the first time, I said, dude, you're going to feel like it's Christmas time, because it is a great feeling when you physically have that comic in hand and you're like, dude, I'm published. I'm out, my stuff is actually out there. You know,
people are reading it.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing feeling. Especially because if it was never like a major goal of yours, you know, like I said, with us, a lot of Sporkman was happy accidents, and you know, we didn't set out from the very beginning to do a comic. You know, it's kind of cool, like, how the hell did this happen to me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's just like, wow, I never expected to actually have something I wrote be able to be purchased by other people and enjoyed. It's
pretty much the whole reason. I feel like, you know, because, you know, I do comics too, and I feel like that's a big part of why we do it. You know, it's just so cool to be able to share what we, you know, what we create and inspire with it. You know,
I know for me, I would much rather create comics than read them. Honestly,
really.
But see, I'm the other way around. I would rather read them instead of creating them, but I like creating them.
So. See, from the time I was little, though, I was always telling stories, and like, you know, for English class or something, for like vocab or whatever, it would be like, okay, here's 10 vocabulary words, and I want you to put them in a story. And so everyone would just like jot down a sheet of paper, and I would be like the kid that wrote like a 10-page story, you know. And I would have wrote that story regardless whether I had to put vocab words in it. And I know my one English teacher.
That's so funny. You know, I think now that you said that, I feel like I used to do that maybe too.
Yeah,
you know, like turn it into like a fun thing, right?
My one English teacher would love,
not 10 pages, but
to have, like, he would have different people read their stories, you know, and he would love to hear mine because I would come up with this crazy shit.
uh,
But a lot of times, you know, after like 15 minutes, he's like, okay, I'll read it later. Like it's going on too long.
It's
But
funny. It was like a whole script, basically.
but I have comics like from that I basically would like doodle a picture on a sheet of notebook paper. I think the first one I ever did was actually on like these little, basically like the size of a note card, but it was like little notepads my mom would have. And it was space stories. And it was all like simple stuff like this alien comes in a ship and attacks these other ships and stuff like that. And then I remember in fifth grade, I did one that was basically like a kaiju thing that was Boulder Body. And it was like this giant woman with like a boulder for a body, and she had big claws. And gosh, I don't know why this is like one of those weird kids' imaginations things, but she had a water fountain on her head. And like she could shoot the water out of the water fountain at like airplanes and stuff. And I still have that. I actually still
Got to bring that
have
back for
those
Sporkman.
stories.
That could
Yeah,
be a villain,
really.
you know. No, that's awesome though. I like that you from a young age you had the passion to create stories. You know,
Yeah,
that's
and
really
so
cool.
so that's why I say, you know, I would much rather write than do the reading on them
I
because
can see that. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean myself too. I mean, I did a lot of writing in middle school and high school. You know, matter of fact, actually, I had an English teacher who really, you know, I didn't want to write. You know, and he's like, "Look, you got this great imagination." He's like, I want you to write. You're gonna regret it one day that you didn't do it. So he just really fostered it, you know. And you know, I think really them meeting Eric, you know, and Chris, we really brought that capability, so it never died. So you know,
I think part of
a
it
lot.
too, and I don't know about you, Chuck, but like for me, I think a lot of it was escapism too, because like both Chuck and I grew up rather poor, and so it's like, you know, where other kids would get like, you know, really cool toys or something like that. I mean, I had cool toys when I was a kid, but I didn't have a lot of friends. Um, you know, I was definitely like, yeah, like I was the kid picked last in gym class and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I was dirt poor, and you know, no parents, you know, shoved into foster homes and stuff like that. So
I have red hair and glasses, so like,
yeah.
so like literally, you turn in the textbook at what a nerd looked like. It was me as a child, and so for me, like I didn't hang out with a lot of people. I usually always had like one or two good friends, and that was about it ever at any time. And so, you know, when you're kind of stuck playing by yourself all the time, you know, you rely on your imagination, you know.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of probably did the same thing when I was younger, and probably led me to a lot of similar avenues. You know, creating stories and things like that. And um, but I wanted to ask you guys a really fun, little, just kind of a fun question right here. If you could take Sporkman to anywhere in the world, or I guess for the universe for that matter, where would like to see Sporkman go? Just a pure hypothetical, just for fun.
So
I would like to actually do a time adventure with him.
Oh wow!
You know,
That
where
would be fun.
basically, you know, we actually had this concept where Sporkman would actually find out there's this mantle, and you know, he would actually go back and he would meet the first Sporkman, who was Sir Sporkalot.
Yep, Sir Sporkalot, and like his
Oh man!
and you know, his visor flips up and down, you know, like a knight's helmet, and then he doesn't have two sporks. He has one big spork that's basically like his shield.
Oh okay,
And
yeah.
and it has this coat of arms on the outside
Oh,
of
I love
the
it.
spork shield and stuff like that.
That's
Yeah.
so fun.
So we had thought about that, and we had an idea for kind of like our own sort of Batman Beyond thing, where we have Sporkman 4.0. That's kind of like a futuristic Sporkman. So, and we've actually entertained ideas about doing like maybe some shorter anthology type stuff, and we thought about doing those as maybe not necessarily canon
Just
stuff.
kind of like a fun one-off thing.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of just explore different versions or ways
Yeah.
of viewing.
Yeah, because we have a couple ideas for and Chuck and I went back and forth on this because I thought it would be fun to do, and Chuck was like, well, he said anthology stuff tends not to do all that well, because I had thought about doing a like some anthology issues that would be 3 short stories that might be like 10, 15 pages or something like that, and we had 2 that were more supernatural kind of Halloween type ones that would kind of fit into that, like a similar theme. And I had thought about doing like like a couple issues like that where they're not necessarily canon or maybe close to canon. We were thinking about doing it where they're actually stories told by someone else. So there could potentially be exaggeration.
Tall
With
tales.
Yeah, with someone else, relaying this story of, like maybe they were saved by Sporkman, but their story may be a little bit embellished.
Right. So, Descool asks, is Sir Sporkalot a horse riding knight that has a spork lance?
No, he doesn't have. Well, we never really gave it that much thought. We did give thought to the armor on the horse because I was thinking about, like, how their heads will have armor, that it would have kind of like a little spork shape to it. But beyond that, didn't give it a lot of thought.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of fun different things you could really do with Sporkman.
And that's the thing is, we completely agree. That was one of the great things is we come up with all these different ideas that really could work, and be very natural, and not feel like it's like we're forcing the idea.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So we're getting closer towards 8 o'clock here. I don't know if how long you guys want to go, but do you guys have? I want to ask a few more questions and give the chat a chance to ask any final questions or anything that they want to get out as we start to wrap things up.
Sure.
But what do you have any advice? I know you touched on this a little bit, but do you guys have any advice for new comic creators that you might want to give out?
I think for me, don't ever give up. Honestly, don't give up on your dreams. You got an idea, you might think that it's some absurd idea. You never know. I mean, I would have never thought, when we started Sporkman, here we would be 13 years later and people want the character. Granted, it's not thousands and thousands of people, but there's still a following out there of people who really like the idea, the concept, and they want to see what we're doing with it.
I'd say my piece of advice is you got to take constructive criticism. You should never just totally rule it out and say your input doesn't matter because it disagrees with my opinion. However, the stipulation of that would be true to yourself and your idea. And okay, going back to what I said earlier, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How freaking ridiculous does that sound? And I'm sure that the guy that created that probably had people that were like, what the hell? Like, no one's going to buy that. No one is going to be interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but look how big it is. So, if you have a story you want to tell, be true to yourself, be true to your idea, but be willing to take the criticism, because someone might say, well, you know what, you have this certain element that 99% of the time it's not going to work, or it, in my opinion, it doesn't work. Value that. Value the good with the bad, but never change so much that you're unhappy with what you're doing. Don't change so much that you feel like now you're writing that project for everyone else and not yourself.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Stay true to your vision and your intentions were to create when you wanted to create something. Yeah, that's actually that's really great advice. So the Indiegogo, we talked a little bit about the Indiegogo coming up, and we don't have an exact date on that yet. Is that right?
No, we do. We are going to be launching March 29th.
Oh, nice. Very cool. That's excellent.
That's a Friday night. That is just because it worked out between what Eric is doing with the moving and stuff like that. And, I'm going to be in the middle because I start my classes here very soon. So also we're back to working on my master's. So that just works a little bit better for us. Then that gives me some time. We can try to lock down our cover, get that done, and then get our colors locked.
One other thing we wanted to do to kind of dovetail with that is, and I'm not sure right now at what state it's at, but we had paid for a booth at Greater Philly Comic-Con, which is in April. And so we wanted to still have the campaign active just near the tail end so that we can really promote it there in person and be able to tell people, look, you got to get on the campaign right now because you only have a week or whatever, which is generally when you're going to get a good portion of your contributors anyway. So we thought it would be good to pound the pavement at the same time we're running the campaign. I don't know where we're at right now because there was some weird stuff with my payment where their website acted like the payment wasn't made, so I ended up making 2 payments, asked them to refund the one, and then they refunded both. And then I emailed them back and said, before I send another payment, I want to make sure everyone is clear what happened and what's going on, and I haven't heard back from them, so hopefully that will get sorted out at some point.
Seriously. But that's cool about the campaign starting up. So it was March 29th, Friday night, and we'll have to have you back on for our campaign. Jesus, I can't say it. Campaign countdown. Once you kind of start getting towards the end of your campaign, we can talk more about it. But is there anything you want to tell your Sporkman fans out there who are listening in?
I like to say thanks for the support that we've gotten from this community. I honestly, after we failed our first one, I was really kind of dejected. I was kind of let down, but not in a bad way. But I felt depressed, because we didn't make our goal, and I was really hoping that we would. But the community really rallied around us. There at the end on our other campaign there at the end, and we actually our last few days that's where we picked up steam, so it started making me feel really good. But I'm grateful for everybody in this community who are Sporkman fans and even potential Sporkman fans, because honestly without you guys we wouldn't still be doing this.
I'm amazed at the fan art that like every time Chuck and I meet up or something, he's like, oh, look at this. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen that one either. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, we're going to have more fan art than we have like official art soon.
Isn't that awesome though? I love that there's so much fan art, and that's exciting to see.
That people like what you've created enough to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take my time to draw that.
Right. Yeah. It really says something about the character in the world and in the comic itself. So no, that's amazing, and so yeah, I mean we're wrapping up here, but I thank you for joining us on this interview. We're gonna look forward to your campaign starting up soon, and want to run down where everyone can go ahead and find and follow you, and where they can be on the lookout for that.
All right, so as always, I am Chuck. You can follow me. I am on Twitter and YouTube. at Sporkman Studios. I'm the kind of the main face of everything on the social media side. So if you're talking to the Sporkman Studios, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be talking with me. And
That 10th time.
That 10th time. Yeah, pretty much. I think it is probably 10 out of 10. Eric,
Yeah, pretty much. Twitter, what's that?
and then on Facebook, you can follow us at I think it's at Facebook.com/Sporkman, right, Eric?
Yeah, I believe that's the, what do they call it? The public figure page or whatever.
And we also have a group on there that we're kind of looking to start up.
Fans of Sporkman, I believe that is. I think that one's a closed group right now, where you have to like request membership. The other one, the public figure one, you can just join. The little profile image is me in the costume.
Yep, and then also you can follow the Sporkman. He has his own profile. That is just at Sporkman, I believe, right, Eric?
You mean on Twitter?
Yeah.
I think it's the real Sporkman.
The real Sporkman, yes, the real Sporkman. At the real Sporkman. And then Eric is Jedi Raylan.
Yeah, on Twitter, and then on Facebook, if anyone's interested in checking out what I do with my day job, I make props and costume accessories and stuff like that at Hole in the Ground Productions on Facebook, or holeinthegroundpro.com. And of course, check out the Sporkman website, which is getspork.com.
Getspork.com. And what was the other one again? Like hole in the ground?
Hole in the Ground Pro.
Pro.com.
Yep.
Boom. Got it.
And you can actually get to that page from the Sporkman page.
Oh, excellent. Yep. That's perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. I'm really looking forward to the campaign. I know a lot of people are as well, so it's going to be an awesome month for you guys.
All right. Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll see you guys all on the podcast. And be sure to check out our community game day this weekend as well. And thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a great night.